This is the portion of our service that we set aside for a prophecy update, and today we're going to look at something, as we always do, the nation Israel, that is a little bit interesting because I don't know that a lot of people are aware of this, but the Bible actually predicts things that haven't even been invented yet. It is perhaps one of the most fascinating aspects of Bible prophecy in how it predicts future events, in some cases 2,500 years plus before they were even, thought of. I find it interesting, and for those of you who are a part of our Thursday night midweek Bible study where we're in the Old Testament and are now in the book of Leviticus, how it is that the Old Testament talks about a cross before the Romans ever came up with the idea of a crucifixion on a cross. And the prophets in the Old Testament predict certain things that will take place in what the Bible calls the last days that were not even thought of yet, nor were there the capabilities to develop that which is prophesied in the Bible. One such Bible prophecy is the prediction that all the nations who come against Israel in the last days will do so using nuclear weapons. Zechariah, the 14th chapter, you're certainly welcome to turn there if you'd like. The prophet Zechariah describes what most Bible teachers believe are the effects of a nuclear attack and the subsequent radiation and the effect that it has on the human body. Again, here we have a prophecy that describes something that had not yet been, nor would it be many generations until it had been developed. And it's beginning in verse 12, Zechariah 14. And this shall be the plague with which the Lord will strike all the people who fought against Jerusalem. Now watch this and notice the graphic nature with which it's described. Their flesh shall dissolve while they stand on their feet. Their eyes shall dissolve in their sockets, and their tongues shall dissolve in their mouths. Pretty graphic detail. The detail is given to us, and it seems to describe with great accuracy the effects on the human body when subjected to nuclear radiation. This is exactly what happens to the human body. So in other words, the prophecy is that in the last days, all of the nations of the earth will gather together against Israel. Now, what happens? Well, they're going to attack Israel. How are they going to attack Israel? They're going to attack Israel with nuclear weapons. And this is what the prophet describes. Another such place is found in Ezekiel, the 39th chapter. We're all familiar with this prophecy in Ezekiel, specifically chapter 38, but also chapter 39. This describes in Ezekiel's prophecy an alliance of nations that will come together and they will attack Israel. The forerunners of this alliance of nations will be none other than Vladimir Putin's Russia and Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's Iran. No wonder that Russia and Iran have a mutual defense treaty and have for a number of years now. No wonder that Iran has nuclear ambitions. No wonder that just last week they announced that they want to have 10 more uranium enrichment sites. It's no wonder that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad has made it his stated goal to fulfill Islamic eschatology, that he desires to wipe Israel off the map, which again fulfills Bible prophecy. Now, listen to this prophecy now in verse 9 of chapter 39 of Ezekiel, because in chapter 38 it describes this attack, this nuclear attack, and Bible scholars believe that this is describing what will happen after this nuclear attack and what Israel will do with the nuclear weaponry. Then those who live in the towns of Israel will go out and use the weapons for fuel and burn them up, the small and large shields, the bows and arrows, the war clubs and spears. For 7 years they will use them for fuel. Now stop right there. Some Bible teachers believe, and I'm of that school and of that belief, that this 7-year period of time that Israel uses these nuclear weapons for nuclear energy will indeed be the 7-year tribulation. I could be wrong. I don't know. I won't be here. I'm hoping you're not here either. We'll find out. But we'll have a bird's eye view. Actually, we won't. Who wants to watch what's going on down here? We're with the Lord. Forget it. I don't want to see that. That's their problem. Anyway, I know that's not very loving, but it's true. So this would also mean that this 7-year tribulation will begin about the time that we have the fulfillment of Ezekiel 38. In other words, it is believed, and I happen to again be of this belief, that you have the war of Gog, the battle of Gog, Ezekiel 38, and you have the battle of Armageddon. And both battles separate, not the same, though there are some well-respected Bible teachers that believe that Ezekiel 38 and the battle of Armageddon are one and the same at the end of the tribulation. I think it's verses like this, prophecies like this, that would seem to indicate that the battle of Gog will take place at the beginning of the 7-year tribulation, which makes that battle a bookend, as the battle of Armageddon is a bookend on both ends of the 7-year tribulation. You have the battle of Gog, which I again believe, because in 38 of Ezekiel, it says that Israel will be dwelling securely. They'll let their walls down. They'll tear down those walls that they had erected, the bars, the gates, and they will be dwelling, or so they think, in safety. This seems to indicate that some kind of an agreement has been made where finally now Israel can be at peace. And I believe that this could mean that the Antichrist in Daniel 9:27 will confirm that 7-year covenant. Once Israel is dwelling safely, their guard is down, the walls are down, what happens? Then this alliance comes. They attack Israel, and they use nuclear weapons. And for 7 years, Israel will use that nuclear fallout and use it for fuel, for energy during the 7 years. In verse 10, it says, they will not need to gather wood from the fields or cut it from the forests, because they will use the weapons for fuel, and they will plunder those who plundered them and loot those who looted them, declares the sovereign Lord. You know what's interesting to me? I don't fear for Israel. I don't fear for... God declared... Here's the way God said it, and you'll forgive my loose paraphrase, if you will, but basically God says it like this. I'm going to return Israel to the land. That's the land that I gave them. I did not give it to the descendants of Ishmael. I gave it to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is not Palestine. It is Israel. Now, once they're back in the land, the enemy nations are going to try to destroy them. But I'm not going to let it happen. See, Israel will live forever. If Israel were to be wiped off the map, then the stars would cease to be hanging in the sky. And he goes on to describe all of these unthinkable things by way of analogy that would also cease if Israel were to cease as a nation. Bottom line, ain't going to happen. You know, I've had people say to me, you know, the safest place to live right now is Israel. You're right. You're right. I think I'd rather be living in Israel or in Jerusalem than in New York, because God says I'm going to protect them. You know, any enemy that comes against them, they're not going to succeed. They will not. Someone needs to tell Ahmadinejad this, please. It is for this reason that the eyes of the world are on Iran and their nuclear ambitions and their development of nuclear weapons, you see. Haaretz in November last month had this article, which is really interesting. The headline reading, "With all eyes on Iran, who's watching Pakistan's nuclear arsenal?" Now listen to this. Fear of the Iranian nuclear weapons development program has overshadowed the fact that not far from Tehran, actually right nearby, two countries, India and Pakistan.